Well, welcome back to another Lister D video. This time it's a case of will it start? The engine has been out of action or not used for best part of a year now, I think. I'm pretty sure the last time I ran it was October 18. It's now the 21st of September 19. And unfortunately, due to sort of various other jobs, projects, this and that, the shed has been full up with DIY stuff and materials and what have you. I've not been able to get it out or, you know, even have a look at it. So yeah, certainly I reckon 11 months since it ran. So there's quite a lot to look at, quite a lot to do. I've got a few little jobs I want to do to it, a few things to show you. So yeah, I want to get it out now, get the cover off, and we'll see what it looks like. Well, there you go. Probably not as bad as I expected, really. Yes, there's some rust on the flywheel. There's rust underneath where the magneto sits, so that's probably going to have to come off and be cleaned up. But the brass work doesn't look too bad. It's well, it's all still there. Thought it would be quite tarnished, but it's okay. What's the hopper? Doesn't look too bad. I did actually treat that with some heat-proof paint when I restored the engine. And there you can see just down there, if I zoom in a bit, let's say there's rust on that bracket where the magneto sits, so that'll have to be cleaned up. But I guess I was going to take all that off, check the chain and everything anyway, so like I say, several jobs to do really before you can even think about trying to turn it over. So I've taken off the float bowl, and as I spoke of, the fibre washers, you can see those, there are I think 3 or 4 in total on the float bowl setup. There's one there, yeah, so there's 3 on here. Replacements have been sourced. These are from Stationary Engine Parts. I'll put a link in the description. They're pretty good for all Lister D type stuff, but they do a lot of other stationary engine components and consumables, and yeah, they've helped me a lot really with this restoration. You know, finding brand new parts, other than obviously eBay, which is also a good avenue to explore for finding bits and pieces. And the good thing about the Lister D is, you know, there are loads of parts out there, so it's quite easy to work on. So I'll probably take that out, and we'll swap these over, put some new ones on, see if that makes any difference. I've just got the float bowl in the vise because this bottom nut was quite hard to undo. I've got the soft jaws on there so I don't damage it, because it's a potentially fragile piece. If I just wind this off, got a load of PTFE tape I put on there as well, which is probably not helping. We can get to that washer underneath and replace that as well. There we go. And I may or may not put that PTFE tape back. Right, so that's the float bowl reassembled with these new fibre washers in place, 3 of. We'll see if that makes any difference. So I want to refit that back to the engine, and then I guess next job probably will be, I guess, take the magneto off and the timing chain cover, and we'll look at that. As you can see, the mag's off. I did notice before I took it off, I took the timing chain cover off. The chain itself is a little bit slack. There is one shim underneath the mag, but I'm now just going to quickly make another one to pack it out a bit more, because it seemed to be excessively loose really. I'd say the chain's a bit too much play in it, so I'm going to just quickly make out of, I've got some scrap mild steel sheet, I don't know, it's 2 or 3 mil, 2 mil probably. Just make another shim to put in there with it. So there you go, yeah, just so a piece of mild steel sheet. I'm just going to quickly, I've used the other shim as just as a template, quickly drew around that. So I'll cut that out, drill some holes, just cut those bits out, and we'll add that in, and hopefully that'll take some of the play out of the chain. So there we go, one roughly fabricated shim. It'll do the job hopefully, so that'll give us another couple of mil, take some of the play out that chain, put it in with the other one, just give it a clean up, and yeah, put all that back. Right, well after all that, putting the extra shim in was too much. Couldn't get the chain to go back on, so you know, in my mind it's still got a bit too much play in it, but I'm just guessing that this, I don't know what that is, 2 mil? I guess I need a mil instead of 2 mil. That'll just take enough slack out of it. So as it is, it's just back in with one shim. I've just retimed it again. I think it was okay, to be honest, but so just a case of adjusting the points so they just start to open when the timing mark is top dead centre, which it is now. I've just took the rocker cover off. Perhaps I'll just check the valve clearances, and I'll probably give that a little bit of oil in there, or a bit of grease, and then carry on with all the other oiling before we go for a start. Right, it's fueled, there's water in the hopper, everything's oiled, all set to go, carbs set. Let's see if it starts. Okay, not try it, but it's not keen. Right, let's try again. quite a successful run. I only had about, I guess, half a pint of petrol, something like that. Not a lot. So it probably ran for about half hour before packing up. But I prefer to leave it without any fuel in it anyway, because God knows when I'll run it again. I reckon that's to say probably about nearly a year, 10-11 months since that's had a run. So yeah, that'll be left there for a while. But one other little job I got left to do was, I had the original, I don't know if you can see those, these are original spec plates really. There's the one that's got the serial number, spec 26DH, horsepower, RPM, and the other one that tells you to drain the water jacket in frosty weather every night. I actually got a company called Vintage Brass Plates to make me up a new set just for display purposes really, but I know a lot of people just polish up the old brass ones and leave them on there, but these ones are actually closer to what it would have looked like. If you can see those, a bit dark, but closer to what it would have looked like when they were new. So I'm going to put those on. Like I say, some people prefer to keep the originals on there. I'm going to keep the originals. I'm not going to get rid of them. They're part of the engine, so they're part of the original fabric of the engine, so I'll keep those somewhere safe. But I just figured these would enhance the look. And again, I suppose it's all personal choice, isn't it? Because there's this ongoing debate about stationary engines, and some people like to do a bit of an oily rag restoration and keep the original paint and just get them running nice and leave them as they are. Other people want to strip them down and rebuild them, and repaint them, replace parts, as I have done really. It's probably better than it was when it came out the factory. It's a 1942 26DH, so probably came out with war finish, to be honest, although there wasn't any evidence of that when I got it, although there wasn't actually a lot of paint on the thing when I got it. It was mainly rust, and I think, to be honest, it possibly had an earlier restoration done on it. So yeah, the original finish, no idea, but I'm guessing 1942 it would have been a war finish engine, so it would have been pretty shoddy basic paint job on it. Like I say, they probably look better now than they ever did, but like I say, that's up to the individual. I'm not against anything really. I say I've seen some fabulous looking engines that have just been sort of given a good overhaul that are still in their original sort of paint rust. They still look good, they run good, they're still a pleasure to see. But that was always my ambition from quite a young age really. When I first saw stationary engines, I was always fascinated by them, always fascinated by the D-type in particular, and always wanted to own one, and I did eventually get around to doing it. It's quite an expensive hobby. The engine was quite cheap, to be honest, 40 quid I paid for it, which is more or less complete. It had a mag, didn't work, but yeah, it was more or less complete. But I've bought all sorts of bits and pieces, had to buy loads of tools and stuff, but I'd never restored anything before like this, never done anything like that, so it was all a learning curve. Don't forget to check out the blog. I did do a blog, basically photographs of everything I did to it from day one. I'll put a link in the description as well for that. There'll be a link in the description for stationary engine parts. There'll be a link in the description for vintage brass plates if you're interested. But yeah, certainly if you want to look on my blog, on my website, you can see a pictorial history of, I say, every job I did on that. I did document it all from start to finish because I wanted to be a record, and there wasn't really at the time anything on the web about it, other than restoring the Lister D-type book, Nigel McBurney's book, or pamphlet, a bit more than a pamphlet. that was originally in Stationary Engine magazine, part of that, but was actually brought out as a book where all the sort of episodes were bound together. That was really good. That helped me a lot because it took you through most of it, but some of it you have to learn yourself. There are some pretty useful resources on the internet to find this stuff out, and yeah, it's probably a lot easier now than it was, certainly. And say you can get a lot of new old stock or even newly manufactured parts for the Lister D-Type still. So in fact, I've even seen Chinese imports. You can even buy sort of Chinese manufacturers are making like the fuel caps and the water drain taps and stuff. You can get them relatively cheaply now. They're just sort of cheap copy pattern parts, but you know, if it gets you gets your engine running, then you know, why not use it? But so there you go. Yeah, so I'm just going to put these brass plates on and we'll have a look. So there you go, there's the engine plates fitted. That looks quite good. It's finished it off nicely. Quite pleased with that really, but that's, as I say, that's just for display purposes. I'll keep the original safe, but you know, yeah, that's just a nice little finishing touch. I've used the brass rivets that came with it. I think the originals were screwed on, the holes were tapped out and they were little brass screws that I kept, but I've just used the rivets, and yeah, I'm quite pleased with it.